If everything is important, nothing is. I cannot emphasize enough how important it is to have a game plan for a year about what is going to be the singular focus that you're going to really care about the most, because you can't care about everything. And so if you think about my career, there's a lot that's public and a lot that's private. So the public-facing things in my career are what everybody sees. It's the 10 million followers. It's the, hit podcast. It's the books that I've published. But that's not the heart and soul of my business. I have been leapfrogging. Remember that game where you hop over the next person and they hop over? I've been leapfrogging my way to the position that I'm in now. It's been a toggle between things that I do publicly and things that are happening in the background. So a lot of people don't realize that I was, for many years, the most sought after and booked female speaker on the corporate circuit. I did nothing but go to stages around the world working with the world's biggest brands at these massive sales events or corporate retreats, speaking and teaching and sharing research and training people. And that's where I gained all my expertise, is the work I was doing privately that nobody knows about. That's where I started to gain a huge following and a tremendous level of respect, and all of this sort of skill that was being built in the background. And so what I want to really have you think about is, what is the one thing that you would want to focus on mastering this year? So about 6 or 7 years ago, for me, the one thing I really wanted to master is I wanted to somehow figure out how to take the things going on in private and make it part of a social media strategy. And so I did what I always do with anything I'm trying new that I want to master. I became a student of it before I executed it. And so I studied people 6 years ago that were doing really cool things on social media, like Gary Vaynerchuk. I started studying a lot of the viral companies that repackage and curate information, like Upworthy. I mean, there's so many OGs. Now everybody has like kind of these viral strategies, but back in the day, that was not what everybody did. And so I was looking at EllenTube, I was looking at YouTube, I was picking everything apart, and I was becoming a student of it. And then I started to apply what I was learning. When I got into the podcast business, I had done audiobooks and audiobook productions for partners like Audible, but I had never launched a podcast. And so I studied it for 2 years. I watched meticulously what my buddy Jay Shetty was doing. I watched meticulously what the #1 female podcast host was doing, who is Alex Cooper, who is on Spotify. She hosts a show called Call Her Daddy, but she's only on Spotify. And so I just meticulously watched the people that I really admired. I watched Howard Stern. I watched Delilah on radio, and I picked apart what they were doing. I became a student of it. And it took me 2 years. 2 years of studying, 2 years of managing a pivot in my business, but it was the #1 thing that I was focused on. The thing that I'm focused on now is YouTube. Now that we launched our podcast and completely destroying it in terms of download numbers and success and reach and growth, now I'm pivoting, and I'm now tearing apart YouTube, because I see that as the single biggest way to reach more people. And so every move that I've made has been a combination of either something that I've picked privately, like I'm going to be the #1 female speaker in the world. That's what I'm going to do. And then I became that. I'm going to take all these private conversations and I'm going to figure out how to put those on social media, because these conversations between me and somebody at a grocery store or on a sidewalk are way more compelling than these things I'm saying on a stage. And then I'm like, I feel called to launch a podcast. There are 6 million podcasts on Spotify alone. How the hell am I going to do this? How am I going to figure this out? How am I going to change my business? Most podcasts don't make any money. If I stop speaking, where's the money going to come from? How am I going to pay for my team? And so I became a student of it. Now it's about YouTube. What is the kind of content we want to create? What does it feel like? What do successful channels do? I don't want it to look like that. And so pick something for the year that you want to master and become a student of it. Then execute. That's my advice.
How can I maintain the optimism needed to stay motivated in the face of so much bad news?
Stop watching the news. Now, it sounds trite, right? But stop watching the news. First of all, there's profound research around why. Sean Anker, who's a famous happiness researcher out of Harvard, has found in his studies that simply watching a minute of news in the morning can have a negative impact on you for up to 6 to 8 hours all day. And here's why this is critical. The most important resource that you have as a business owner is your time, your attention, and your energy. If you are giving your time, your attention, and your energy to either negative news or to social media, you are shooting yourself and your business right in the foot. And so I want you to start to take your time, your attention, and your energy very, very seriously. Because whatever it is that you allow as input profoundly impacts your output. And one of the first things that you could do is remove watching the news or consuming news from your morning diet. Do not look at it. It does not concern you. I don't watch the news because what I know is that if there is something important going on, everybody around me will be talking about it. Then I can choose to tune in or not. Second thing you should do is you should immediately go to your social media accounts, and I want you to get extremely just selfish is even the wrong word. I want you to get strategic about the accounts that you follow. This is all input. You are voluntarily giving your attention, time, and energy to other accounts, to brands, to influencers, to people. If that input is not lifting you up, is not making you smarter, is not helping you focus in business, delete. If you're scared about what Aunt Susie Q is going to do when you unfollow her, you can just hit mute. But you have to start taking the input that you are getting profoundly seriously because it does impact the output.
Launching a startup is hard, and I find it easy to get distracted by other projects and jobs. How can I keep my motivation and focus on my own business?
Okay, so what you're describing is the single biggest obstacle to your business. And there is a form of what I call business procrastination, where you are busy doing everything but your business, right? You are avoiding the things that feel hard because it's easier to wash the dishes. It's easier to send out that email. It's easier to fold your laundry. It's easier to go to a yoga class. It's easier to fiddle around on Pinterest than to do the actual work to grow your business. And here's the way that I think about this. Number one, first of all, you have done the hardest part, which is having the self-awareness that you're doing it. So that's a really important thing because procrastination, when it comes to things that you need to do or want to do, it can become a habit. And believe it or not, procrastination, when you look at the research, it is triggered by stress. And when you blow off things that feel hard, you're trying to get relief from your stress. And so your business probably stresses you out. That's why you're doing easier things. And that's why you're avoiding it. And so number one, congratulations, because you have the self-awareness to realize that you're doing it. My philosophy about everything when I realize I've got a problem is how do I make this easier? How do I make this easier on myself? And so here's what I would recommend. I would think a lot about where do you do your best work? And for me, I'm easily distracted too. And so if I have to get deep work done or I have to do things that I'm avoiding, I get out of my house. I get out of my office. I'll go to a coffee shop. There's something about the ambient noise that actually makes me focus. The single most effective place for me to work is an airplane seat. Why? I'm strapped in. There's nowhere to go. The Wi-Fi is usually crappy. And so I can open up something that I really need to dig into and I can put my head down and get it done. There's also this concept that I want to explain that has been a game changer for me. There are 5 zones of time in the day. 5 zones of time. I finally realized this. This is something I've been researching. I'm like, oh my God, there are 5 zones of time. So zone number 1 is when you wake up. You own that time. That is your time. And so many of you just casually hand it over to the internet. You look at your phone, you check your emails, and zone 1, in my opinion, is the only time that you have that is yours. And you have to fight for it. Zone 2 begins the moment you check your email or your phone or you turn on your TV, because you have turned your attention over to someone or something else. Zone 3 happens the second you start your workday, because you have traded your time and attention for a paycheck, or you have traded your time and attention to earn profits for your business. That is not your time. Do not get mad at your job. Do not get mad at your business, because you are exchanging time and energy and attention in order to get money, period. Zone number 4 typically happens around 3 o'clock. That's when most of us start tapping out in terms of our mindset, but we're still sitting at our business, we're still sitting at work. And it's sort of that blurry zone of you're not going to get any great work done there. And zone 4, by the way, also extends into going home. You're cooking dinner, you're doing all this. It's sort of this gray zone of transitioning from work into the rest of your life. Zone 5 happens when you turn off the TV at the end of the night. Mm-hmm. That is also time that you could own, but you are probably, unless you're somebody that does your best work at night and you get that kind of night owl thing, you will be better suited to think about how to get sleep, which you need, so that when you wake up tomorrow and you have zone 1, you actually know what to do with it.
That's good.
And so the more that I have focused on zone 1 and zone 5 in my life, the more productive I become, the less stressed I become, the more I understand kind of what time throughout the day is, what expectations to have around it, the less resentment I feel, and it helps a lot.